Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Hinch, and thanks for joining me. Today, I'd like to share with you some insights on innovation in the business world. What I'll share are some of the topics from my book, Winning Through Innovation: Lessons from the Front Lines of Business. Now, this book tells the story of how real managers have led innovation successfully and what they did to achieve that success. Now, I've served my entire career in high tech with over 20 years in senior leadership positions at Hewlett Packard, Agilent Technologies, and TeamLogic IT. I have personally led innovation projects that have delivered billions of dollars in revenue to those companies. But I will be quick to say that while I may have led those projects, innovation is never the result of just one person's work. It takes a team working together to deliver results. And in my book, I have tried to recognize others who were key contributors to those successes. Here are the topics of today's discussion. I will start by defining what it means to be innovative in the business world. Then I will describe the four major types of innovation and what it takes to manage them successfully. I'll finish by sharing a very successful innovation project that I led at Hewlett Packard that has delivered over $1 billion of new revenue to that product line, and it is not done yet. Now, innovation is a hot buzzword throughout the industry today. Look at the website of nearly any multinational corporation, and you'll see the word innovation prominently highlighted throughout it. I recently had the opportunity to attend an industry event where one of the organizations was handing out notebooks with the words "propelling innovation" displayed prominently on the covers. I thought, this is great. I'm writing a book on innovation, and I'd like to learn what this organization is doing to propel it. So I sought out one of their business executives and asked her to tell me more about what they were doing. She was somewhat embarrassed to say that that was just a tagline. They put it there because they wanted people to know that they thought innovation was important. Innovation needs to be more than just a tagline. You need to find ways to embed it into your company culture. But first, you need to understand what it means to be innovative in the business world. A review of literature provides many definitions, generally along the lines of inventing something new. In the business world, invention is not enough. Innovation requires more than that. Here's a better definition. Innovation is the ability to see opportunity in places others do not, and turn that vision into profitable reality. Notice the two parts to this definition. First is the ability to see the opportunity, the innovative idea. Second is the ability to turn that vision into profitable reality, the ability to deliver. In business, good ideas are worth nothing if they are not successfully commercialized. Now, at this point, those of you in the nonprofit sector may be thinking, we are not in business to make a profit. This doesn't apply to us. But that's not true. You too have a profit objective. It may only be zero, but it is not negative. Remember that it takes money to innovate. If you are not generating enough value from your innovative ideas to offset that expense, you are not innovating successfully. Here are what I consider to be the 5 most important tenets of innovation. Any company that wants to grow needs to be good at innovation. There are various types of innovation, and the best companies excel at all of them. Innovation requires commitment from all levels of the organization, starting at the top. The R&D function must be an innovation engine, and innovation is a team game. R&D cannot do it all on its own. Now, I'm only going to talk about 2 of these today. I will start by explaining the various types of innovation, and then I will discuss the commitment necessary from all levels of the organization and the organization structures that you need to put in place to achieve success. I'll start by explaining a concept that becomes more and more important the higher you move in management. I call it high contrast management. It comes about because the decisions that you make become more complex the larger the organization you manage. I have seen too many managers in high tech agonize endlessly over a decision. It comes from their inherently analytic nature. Engineers are taught from the first day of their first engineering class to analyze a problem from every angle. Don't be quick to jump to a conclusion. Take the time to think it through and get the right answer. Now, for an engineer, that is sound logic. For a manager, it is a recipe for paralysis. There are few right answers in management. Every decision will have trade-offs. Overanalyzing it will not make those trade-offs go away. Rather than searching endlessly for a decision without trade-offs, acknowledge the trade-offs, make the decision, and move on. The only way to do this is to simplify complex issues to get down to their fundamental components. Here's a quote to consider. This is attributed to Albert Einstein. He may not have said it exactly like this, but everyone remembers it this way. Everything should be made as simple as possible. What people often don't remember, though, is that there is a second line to this quote, but not simpler. The message is that you need to be comfortable simplifying complex issues so they are easier to understand and act on. Simplify, but don't oversimplify. I share this because now I want to apply this concept to innovation. Other authors describe as many as 14 types of innovation. But if you are a manager who needs to make decisions on the best way to innovate, you can do it with a much simpler vision. Here it is. These are what I consider to be the 4 most important types of innovation. Think of it along 2 axes. On the horizontal axis, I classify it as either product innovation or process innovation. Now, think of these in broad terms. I use the term product innovation to cover more than just physical products. It also includes offerings of services. Sony or Procter & Gamble sell physical products, whether they be high-definition TVs or tubes of toothpaste. United Airlines and FedEx sell services, whether they be to transport you from one city to another or to deliver your packages to your doorstep. And process innovation covers more than just the process used to create those products or services. It also includes processes in such areas as sales, marketing, human resources, and finance. Now, on the vertical axis, I classify it as either incremental innovation or disruptive innovation. Incremental innovation involves offering improvements to existing products or processes to improve the experience for current users. Disruptive innovation introduces new products to new customers to fundamentally change markets. Now, in each quadrant, I give you an idea of the level of investment, risk, and return for that type of innovation. So an incremental product innovation can usually be done for a relatively low investment. It has relatively low risk, and the return on that investment will be moderate. A disruptive process innovation, on the other hand, will take a much higher level of investment, will involve more risk, but if successful, will deliver very high returns. In my book, I tell about a disruptive process innovation that I once led for Hewlett-Packard. We introduced a completely new manufacturing process for printed circuit boards across the entire company. It took us 4 years and many millions of dollars of investment, but when we were finished, we had a manufacturing technology that was unparalleled in the industry. It has been the basis for the manufacturing technologies used by HP and its spin-off companies ever since. Now, I'll also point out that I don't classify any of the quadrants as low return. All types of innovation can be worthwhile under the right circumstances. Calling any of the quadrants low return would incorrectly imply that this kind of innovation is not a good way to invest. Now, not every quadrant makes sense at any given time, but none of the quadrants are inherently poor choices. The only low return choice is no innovation at all. Now, disruptive innovations can throw markets into turmoil and completely rearrange the structure of the marketplace. Companies that were formerly market leaders could be left behind once the dust settles. Consider the impact of the introduction of the first iPad on the newspaper market. Suddenly, a whole class of users decided they no longer needed to buy printed newspapers. They could read all the news they wanted on their tablets. Half the newspaper publishers in existence when that iPad was introduced are no longer around, but at least those that remain have survived by offering online versions of their newspapers. But imagine if you were the president of a company that manufactures printing presses for the newspaper industry. Your business is now gone, and it will never come back. Here's another example of disruptive innovation, the migration of railroad locomotives from steam-powered to diesel-powered. Not a single manufacturer of steam locomotives survived that transition, and only one, the American Locomotive Company, lingered along on painful life support for more than a few years. Now, incremental innovation is when you develop improved versions of your current products and sell them to your current customers. Take the iPad, for example. That first iPad was a true disruptive innovation, but all the follow-on versions are incremental innovations designed to improve the experience for existing customers. Automobile manufacturing is an example of an industry that has been driven by incremental innovation for decades. The automobiles built today sell to the same customers who bought them 20 or 30 years ago, but they are not the same products. Innovations such as anti-lock brakes, airbags, and advanced crash protection technologies have made cars safer. Improvements in reliability have allowed automobile manufacturers to extend warranties from yesterday's 1-year period to today's 3 or more years. Incremental innovations such as these encourage existing customers to trade in their old cars to buy safer and more reliable new cars. The most important thing to understand is that the way to manage the process for disruptive innovation is not the same as how to manage it for incremental innovation. For incremental innovation, you are trying to either improve the experience for existing customers, improve the profitability of the product line, or both. This is exactly what the managers of that product line should want to do. So they should be the ones to drive incremental innovations. Disruptive innovation is different. Here, you're trying to expand your business by developing new products for new customers. This kind of innovation comes with significant risk because you don't know the market and you may not be sure the solution your technology will deliver is what those customers need. The investment you make on a disruptive innovation is not something that will pay off in the near term. It will take years, not months, to deliver a return. This is not something that managers of an existing product line will want to do. They are being measured by how well they deliver monthly or quarterly results against targets. They will resist doing anything that reduces their chances of achieving those results. I call this the curse of the corporate business model. There are 3 main reasons why established companies have difficulty dealing with disruptive changes. First, corporate metrics and reward structures do not encourage investment in new, untried ideas. Wall Street investors demand predictable results every quarter, and woe to the senior management team that does not do this. Entering a new business comes with considerable uncertainty, and this does not align with the need to deliver predictable results. This same logic percolates all the way down the management chain. Even so, some managers might be willing to do so if they thought it was worth it. But that's not the case. If a startup company is wildly successful, its employees can become instant multimillionaires. That incentive can be extremely inspiring, even though the chances of it happening are remote. In a large corporation, the manager who guides a new business to spectacular growth may be rewarded with a few hundred stock options or the now popular restricted stock units, and perhaps a promotion. But if it doesn't work out, their career path will likely be permanently derailed. Many managers don't see the reward as being worth the risk, especially since there are rarely any penalties for avoiding it. And if you believe Wall Street really does factor a company's long-term strategy into their decision to invest, note that according to Reuters, the average investor today holds a stock for only 5.5 months, just long enough to care about reaping a return from short-term profits. Finally, managers in large corporations are inherently more conservative than their counterparts in startups. The people most comfortable taking risks are not at the large companies. They are at the startups. Managers in large companies got there in part because they liked the idea of a regular paycheck and predictable job hours. While they might be willing to take calculated risks within their present businesses, stretching outside this comfort zone is difficult. Now, some managers in the corporate world may object to this and claim they are not shy of taking risks. If so, ask them whether they are ready to lose their job if their next risky decision doesn't work out. If their response is, "How do you expect me to take risks if I may lose my job for a decision that doesn't work out?" simply point out this is what happens all the time in the world of startups. So the solution is to manage disruptive innovation differently. Do it through a separate organization that is not held hostage to monthly results. There are 4 ways to do it. First, you could set up a corporate research laboratory to focus on new technologies. That's the Bell Labs approach. Second, you could take the approach of funding startups as if your company was a venture capital investment firm. Third, you could staff a limited scope project to develop a specific innovation. And finally, you could create an internal new business creation group to serve as a sort of venture capital firm for internal investments. I talk about all of these in my book, and today I will discuss 2 of them, starting with the corporate venture capital approach. This is where the corporation designates a specific pool of money to invest in startups and staffs a dedicated organization to manage it. The goal is to eventually acquire the successful startups or their technologies. Now, you can see that this type of investment has grown over 30% per year in recent years for several reasons. First, it can give you early insight into emerging technologies, which can be important even for technologies you decide not to acquire. Second, it gives you visibility to the most promising startups, which increases your chances of acquiring the best of them. Finally, it is potentially less expensive than waiting to acquire a venture capital funded startup until after it has already proven its value. But there are also problems with this approach. First, it comes with considerable risk. 80% of startups fail, and even if you are careful, you will still invest in your share of failures. The venture capital world understands this. They know the returns they get from the successes will more than offset the losses from the failures. Corporate senior leaders rarely understand this. They expect every investment to be a success, which will never be the case. The track record of corporate venture capital is mixed, and many companies end up shutting it down because of what they see as a dismal track record. The other approach we'll discuss today is the limited scope innovation project. This is where the corporation creates a separate organization whose job is to develop a specific disruptive innovation. It's the internal company equivalent of a true startup. It should be a small organization staffed only by people who truly believe in the idea, and it needs to be insulated from near-term financial results. I now want to share an example of just such a project that I led for Hewlett-Packard. I was the R&D manager for a small organization inside HP's test and measurement business that our corporate vice president had created to serve as a sort of an internal startup. Our charter was to develop a line of accessory products that would help HP divisions sell more of their own products. The story starts with a product line from the HP division in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Their product was called a digital sampling oscilloscope, and it sold for about $25,000 per copy. Now, you don't need to know anything about what a digital sampling scope is, except for 2 things. First, it was used by design engineers in the computer industry who were inventing new laptop and desktop computers. Second, there were only 2 companies serving this market. The leader was Tektronix, a company in Oregon with about 75% share of the market. Hewlett-Packard was a distant second with only 25% share. The HP managers in Colorado decided there was no future for their product, so they decided the only option was to kill the product line and move all the design engineers onto more important projects. Now, while my business was not part of that product line, we sold accessory products that were important to it. One of the accessories that we sold was something called a light wave detector. It was not used by engineers in the computer industry. It was used by engineers in the newly emerging fiber optic telecommunications industry who were developing the fiber optic systems that were critical to the delivery of the internet to customers throughout the world. This was not a market that Colorado Springs knew or understood, so they had not factored it into their decision. My team, however, saw considerable potential. We made a compelling case that rather than killing the product line, Colorado Springs should redirect it to the fiber optic telecommunications market. We spent several months making the case for them to change their decision, but they were unmoved. They felt there were many lower risk ways to use their engineers to develop products for customers they already served. It was the classic case of the curse of the corporate business model. Finally, in desperation, we asked them to transfer the product line to us. And to our surprise, they agreed. They were relieved that they would not have to explain to our company's CEO why they were shutting it down. And so here's what we did. First, we transferred responsibility for all future digital sampling scope product development to my team in Santa Rosa. It was a little tricky because they did not transfer the existing product to us, so we did not get a revenue stream that would help fund this new development. But we made it work by getting approval for a reasonable budget and by carefully controlling our investment. Next, we needed a way to talk to customers to make sure we understood what they really needed. And we needed to do it in a way that would not alert Tektronix about what we were doing. Since the customers we wanted to talk to were all customers of Tektronix, we knew that word would soon get back to them. So we ended up inventing what was essentially a phantom product that we knew would appear harmless to Tektronix, but would still let us learn what customers needed. We knew the fiber optic market had many different segments, and we could not address all of them with our first product, so we used the concept of minimum viable product to introduce a first product that only met the needs of one market segment. We would follow on later with products designed for other segments. And finally, our marketing department was adamant that we not call our product an oscilloscope. Here's why. They were convinced that the term oscilloscope was owned by Tektronix. If we called our product an oscilloscope, customers would view us as a late entrant into an existing market. If we gave it a new name, customers would see us as the first entrance into a new market. Now, coming from R&D, I was not convinced that this was important. I figured customers would know it was an oscilloscope no matter what we called it, but I let marketing have their way with this decision. Charlie Schaefer was my marketing counterpart, and after numerous brainstorming sessions, many of them in bars, he came up with the name Digital Communications Analyzer, or simply DCA. The word oscilloscope was banished from our vocabulary. I have to admit, this was one of the smartest decisions we made. Customers latched onto the name and used it in their technical papers, even if they'd taken their measurements with the Tektronix oscilloscope. It became such a dominant term in the industry that when a small startup introduced something similar a few years later, they called it a DCA, not an oscilloscope. Now, as I said, we started with what could be considered a minimum viable product. It consisted of a mainframe that had 2 slots to plug in the measurement modules, and our first introduction included only the plug-in modules for one specific segment of the fiber optic market. But by designing our mainframe as a platform, it was easy for us to follow on with additional modules in later months. Before long, we had introduced more modules for other segments of the market, and this increased sales to the point where we could afford to continue our development for additional markets. These introductions generated even more revenue and allowed us to fund even more development. And within a few years of that first product launch, we had over 20 modules for different market segments. Because we had taken the approach of designing our solution as a platform rather than as unique solutions, it was easy and profitable for us to develop modules for every market need, even ones with only a small sales potential. The DCA product line was one of the most successful HP introductions of the entire decade. In its first 6 years, it generated nearly $1 billion of revenue, and it is still in business even today. I will conclude by recognizing that one key to success was that the managers in Colorado recognized the value of transferring the product line rather than shutting down the business. And this is a key point. Success in innovation depends on everyone working as a team. It's important not to let people or organizations build silos that interfere with the success. I explore this concept in much more detail in my book. So to summarize, here are the key points of today's talk. In business, innovation includes both the innovative idea and the ability to execute. Good ideas are worth nothing if you can't turn them into sustainable benefit. I've also shown how you can consider innovation to be divided into 4 quadrants. It can be either product or process innovation and either incremental or disruptive innovation. Another key point is that incremental innovation is best managed by the business that will benefit from it. Disruptive innovation, on the other hand, should be managed by a separate group not subject to delivering monthly results. So I hope you found this interesting. Today's talk has covered only a subset of the topics that I cover in my book. I hope what I have shared today will inspire you to want to learn more so that you can embed the concepts of innovation into the fabric of your own company. And reading a book can only be the first step in that process. Once you understand what it takes to build an innovative company, you need to follow through with the actions necessary to turn that theory into profitable reality. I wish you much success on your journey, and thank you once again for joining me today.